Well, that was interesting, and I have thoughts. So, let's talk about David Lynch, Dune. Welcome back to the Dune Review Video Series. This is part 2, and we're going to talk about 1984, directed by David Lynch, Dune. Courtesy of release by Apple Video on 4K. We're going to talk about that in a moment, but we're going to talk about my thoughts on 1984 Dune. And before going to my thoughts, this is a film that had been on my radar for quite some time in the early Blu-ray collection days, and that cover has always been my intrigued, has piqued my attention for a long time, and that's how I found out that this was based on a novel, which I highly recommend you want to watch part 1, which is in my book review, so link below on that. But we'll talk about the 1984, and going in, I'm not expecting much because I'm hearing from my friends' thoughts of this film. So I went in with low expectation. So I'm expecting some outdated kind of stuff, like the visual effects is outdated, the special effects, and some interesting changes from the books and all that. So going in, this is the film I've been on my radar for a long time, and here we are in 2021. I finally got to sit down and got a chance to watch the film for the very first time. And 2020 was the year that I finally discovered some David Lynch films for the first time, like Eraserhead and The Elephant Man. And this is his big studio release title. This is a mainstream film that he has done as a director, and he's known for this smaller indie type character depth layers film, and this is the first time going into the big budget big studio release. And I heard so much about this film, especially the behind the scenes. So going in, the whole behind the scenes is on a whole nother story, a whole nother level, and it's fascinating. So before the David Lynch film ever got made, there was the earlier draft that the Jodorowsky Dune, which never been made, never happened, but only in pre-production stages. There's a bunch of concept art, and that's a documentary I would love to check out. Maybe hopefully in the future I will do that review, maybe a part 4, who knows. But I would love to check out the Jodorowsky Dune. So since Jodorowsky's Dune did not be made, David Lynch came forward and he wrote the new script and he directed his adaptation of Dune. So my thoughts on Dune. That's a very interesting watch. Is it flawed? Yes. Did I enjoy it? Honestly, yeah, I really enjoyed this film, but I didn't love it. I think it's a misunderstood kind of film that I actually really enjoyed, but there's a lot of flaws that, as a big fan of the book, which I read for the first time and love that book, yeah, it's not one of the better adaptation in my opinion. But there's a lot of good things. We'll talk about the pros. Now let's go to the cons. So cons. So the cons is, my very first con is that this film felt rushed. What I mean by rush is that they didn't have time to breathe. They didn't have time to flesh out the characters. It felt everything in the moment that felt so rushed, and we get to the point that there's no breathing room to flesh out the characters, to have a moment to sit down, to relax, and it's just everything is in the moment. Everything is going at a fast pace. Jump up to jump up to jump. There's no breathing room. There's no relaxing time, and that's one of my main problem with that David Lynch film is that they didn't have time to introduce a lot of the characters, including Sturgar, Chani, even Gurney Halleck. I wish they have time to breathe and flesh out the character, have a character moment, have a breathing room for them, and they didn't do that in the David Lynch film because everything felt rushed. like we got to make this film made, and you can tell there's a lot of cutting room. That they cut out a lot of scenes. You can tell there's missing parts in the film. Another con is that they left out a very important parts in the story that's been nowhere to be found in the movie. I mean, come on. There's so many interesting. Yes, you gotta cut down, but the one time we don't want people, to be felt bored and all that jazz. I get that, but it's important to have a character growth and a character that to let the character flesh out throughout this whole story from the beginning to end, and everything felt rushed. And there's so many exposition dumped that we don't need. There's a reason why in the book that we have a thought bubble of the characters, each particular character. In the film, you don't need that. We only need the emotion of the character, and that's it. We don't need their inner thoughts in the movie. I feel that's very annoying, but we get what they're thinking by using their emotion. While they were confused, while they were stern, while their emotion, we don't need their inner thoughts, voiceover dialogue. We don't need that in the film. I don't think it's necessary. In the book, it is necessary, but in the film, not so much. I'm really curious what's gonna happen in the new version. That's coming out really soon. And the other con is that yes, some of the scenes feel outdated, and the CGI, including the force fields. It can be laughingly bad, but that's the charm of it. From the 80s, that's the 80s. There's a lot of outdated parts that it did work at the time, but it does not work today, if that makes any sense. But it's pretty cool to see, the time that it was. And yeah, it's outdated at some parts, but there's some cool moments we would talk about. So the cons are, it felt rushed. They didn't have time they didn't have a breathing room for the characters and the story, and I don't need the inner thoughts, voiceover. We don't need that in the film. That's very unnecessary, to be honest. And there's many exposition stuff. That's what there's a reason why in this film in the beginning of the movie we have an exposition dumped in the beginning of the movie so the people could understand the story, because they were so worried that people are not gonna understand the whole, the spice, the worlds, the houses, and all that interesting thing that they can, be introduced in the movie without having exposition that needed. But I will say they did try their best, put in their best adaptation as they can. It feel like everything had been shorted down and cut a lot of things, removed the important parts from the book. Yes, they kept the important stuff, but not the cool little things that they had the breathing room for the characters. That's what the main reason there's the book, that there's so many great character moments in the book that they couldn't do that in justice for the film. And I think David Lynch did a fine job directing this film. You can tell it's very well shot, the framings look nice, and you can see the production sets are wonderful. Even including the costume, I love the costume. And one of my favorite aspects in this movie is the actor who portrayed Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. I think he did a fine job playing a disgusting, ruthless character. But yes, he can be laughable at times, but I really do enjoy the performance. As well, all the cast. This is a great cast. I didn't expect some well-known face to be in this movie. I went in going cold and blind and didn't expect, some major actor like Patrick Stewart, Brad Dourif, Max von Sydow. I mean, those are three great actors, and I didn't expect them to be in the movie. That's pretty cool to see. Like, oh my God, Chucky, Professor Xavier, that's so cool. And Max von Sydow from The Seventh Seal, that's awesome. But yeah, great cast, but my only problem is that the character didn't have time. I want them to be fleshed out. The only character that we saw fleshed out the most is probably the main character, Paul Atreides. The rest kind of felt backwards and just felt outcast. That we don't need them to be fleshed out, but that's why the book is so wonderful that we get to see them fleshed out as a character. And you can tell there's so many moments in the movie while you're watching the movie, you can recognize that they're missing some scenes that's not in the movie that is in the book, and that kind of sucks. So the pros so far is the costume design is wonderful. The production design, the sets is also wonderful. The cast who played, the cast is great, as well as the main actor who portrayed Baron is wonderful to see, and you can tell he have a blast playing this character, a very disgusting character. And I'll say I really like the score in this film, really wonderful stuff. Classic 80s orchestra, really great. And honestly, that's all I can say for the pros. It's like most of the cons outtakes the pros, because this is a very important book. This is a very dense book, and they didn't do the adaptation justice because it felt rushed, and they didn't quite have a time to breathe and having let this be a duology, or it's just they have to be one big film, which I think is a mistake. They could have done like a trilogy back then, or a duology. Maybe that was maybe they didn't have that choice. Maybe they couldn't do that. Maybe they decided to put all in one instead. And you can feel that it's very rushed. They want to put this out already because this has been in development for the longer time. Doing the Jodorowsky Dune, now the David Lynch. But yeah, I kind of wish that they could have done a better job. But overall thoughts, I think I really enjoyed this movie. Despite the fact that I have several problems in this movie, but I cannot help it to admit that I really did enjoy this film. Is it great? Is it perfect? No. Is it bad? No, really. I wouldn't say it's bad, but I would say it's just middle of the road kind of film. It's just meh. They could have done better with the script, and they could have done take your time, flesh out the characters. So yeah, I did enjoy this movie, and it's pretty cool. Like while I finished the book, while watching the movie, I can recognize some scenes. I'm like, oh yeah, that scene in the book is amazing. Oh yeah, that's so cool. They honestly realize that. But my favorite aspect of this movie is the model work. Especially the worms. They're so cool looking. I gotta be honest, they're so cool looking. The fact that I got a little bit of smile on my face, because that's wonderful, because the 80s, they can do practical effects back then. Nowadays, it was all CGI, obviously, but it's pretty cool to see the worm done pretty cool looking, and I really like some of the scenes, two of my favorite scenes in the movie that it really done justice, that I really liked. I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, because there's a lot of people who have not seen this movie, and this is the type of movie that kind of failed the box office, and, I wonder why. But yeah, and also David Lynch never talked about this film. He loves, he's more of an artsy, indie kind of director more than the big budget, big studio release. And I'm kind of glad this is the last thing that he ever done as a big scale, big budget kind of movie, epic scope and all that. I'd rather see him do like smaller independent films like in Elephant Man and Eraserhead. Those are the two David Lynch film I have seen besides Dune, which is a recent watch. So let's talk about the presentation of Dune. So this is released by Arrow Video, and this is a 4K release. And I gotta say, the transfer looks incredible. Now, I never owned Dune in previously format, either DVD nor Blu-ray. I've been wanting to get the Blu-ray for the longest time in my early days of collecting, but I never got around to getting them. Thankfully, I will provide a much better edition, a limited edition release, and also 4K. So I don't know how the Blu-ray looks, and that's released by Universal. But the 4K transfer looks amazing, and this is my first time owning a film in a physical media, so it's pretty nice. I get a deluxe treatment, and I give out a red carpet, a royal treatment. So yeah, the 4K transfer looks very nice. The details right there, the color pops, and it feels natural, and there's grain in there. I think it looks fantastic on 4K. I don't know how the Blu-ray looks, but yeah, I decided to go with the 4K, to go to the bigger route. And this is a limited edition release, just like I said. It comes with a nice hardback case and a beautiful newly commissioned artwork that just fits the tone and fits the vibe of Dune. And there's the back. And inside the inside this case include a 65-page booklet that include information about Dune, the interviews with the actors about Dune, and we get a wonderful 2-sided poster. I would love to frame that soon in the future. And also the 4K case itself that you can reverse the artwork and include 2 discs. One is the feature film on 4K, and the other is the Blu-ray with special features. That's all that was included in this wonderful limited edition 4K release of Dune. And yes, there's tons of great extras that have not yet dived in, but there's one missing big extra that's not included that have been removed from their announcement. That was the big 3-hour-long documentary about the making of Dune. I believe the history, the making of Dune. And I believe that was taken out through licensing, issues. I would love that it was added in here, but it was omitted, which sadly that kind of sucks. I really want to see that documentary, but I'm never gonna get around to seeing it, which kind of sucks. But yeah, it is what it is. But I still, got this release. It's still a very nice release by Herbert Video. Wonderful release. The standard release will be coming out really soon. So yeah, you don't have to get the limited edition release. I decided to because it deserves a red carpet treatment. But yeah, really nice release by Herbert Video, and I'm so glad I finally watched this movie for the first time. So yeah, that is my review on 1984 David Lynch Dune. Comment below what you think of the film. I'm really curious if there's people who love this movie. I kind of like this movie, despite there's some problems, some flaws here and there, but there's some great moments to enjoy, and I really do enjoy the cast, including the one actor who played portraying Baron Harkonnen, which is fantastic to see. And there's some good moments, some not. It's a very interesting watch, I gotta admit. And I'm fully prepared for the Denis Villeneuve version of Dune. I read the book, now I have seen the David Lynch film. That means I'm complete. But there is a mini series that's released by Sci-Fi Channel. I would love to check out, but I don't have the time to check that out because I want to watch because this was probably my main priority for me to watch. So yeah, there you have it, guys. That's my thoughts on 1984 Dune. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Have a great day. Take care.